So if you have not heard the big update, Erik Menendez seen the parole board. And if you guys haven't been following along, this is a case that's gone down in the books as one of the most infamous true crime cases before true crime was what it is now. It's been parodied in movies, shows, all kinds of pop culture references. Who remembers Cable Guy? Ben Stiller played like a knockoff version of that trial going on at the time. And it's so crazy. I was just binge watching Sopranos and happened to just catch this scene the other day.
He's seeing a psychiatrist, for Christ's sake. How about that, huh? My nephew is seeing a psychiatrist. Makes me want to cry. No shit. Indictment's being prepared. He's spilling his guts. I fucking knew it. No, you didn't fucking know it. I just told you. God knows how much of our family business he has. If the place is bugged, that stuff's not admissible. It's that doctor-patient privilege, just like us in Melvoin. Melvoin's a lawyer. He's in the fucking ballpark. Suppose this shrink gets scared or something. Do you remember those two fucking Escobedo brothers or whoever the fuck in California, they whacked their parents? The shrink was in a fucking witness chair. Shit.
Uncle June. Remember that? That was such a crazy part of that show, seeing a gangster in a mob in therapy. And you heard they were so worried about what if he spills the beans, tells our secrets in there, right? We're not even supposed to acknowledge that this thing exists. The mafia is technically a secret society. But seriously though, with this case, that was crazy to me, the way the therapist told the authorities. And it didn't just happen in a straight up way, like he heard it and they dimed him out. As I know, even with confidentiality, there's certain mandated things where they have to report things to the authorities, but it was done in a real shady way. Tap in if you remember how that all went. It was nuts. But it's been a long time coming, 30-something years. They were just resentenced to 50 to life, originally being sentenced to life. And real quick, too, this same law that the Menendez brothers were resentenced on, this, forget the name of the exact law or whatever it is, where if you were sentenced as a juvenile to life, you get to have your case reassessed. The rapper X-Rated, who actually was locked up with the Menendez brothers, was resentenced on it. And there's someone else whose channel I'm going to leave in the comments who's going to get resentenced on this very same law soon. And for those that have been watching my channel for a while, you may remember Mike, who tapped in from a live from behind a wall, and we didn't know it until later on in the live. We had a real good discussion, but I'm going to leave his channel in the comments. Go check him out, subscribe to him, support him if you would, check him out. But they were resentenced to 50 to life, and with the 34, 35 years and whatever, they were able to see the board. And they actually, after going into great length about the actual crime, why he did it, the way he grew up with a lack of morals and just a messed up upbringing, whether or not what you believe. There's some people that don't believe about the father and some of the things that they said. I want to know where you stand on this, as this case has gotten a lot of attention real recently with the Netflix series. There was also a documentary. There was one that came out on Prime called Menendez Menudo or something like that, about their father who was in the music industry, where someone else who was involved or was a member of Menudo was saying the dad was a sick sack of ish who abused young boys, just a real evil, deviant demon who deserved to burn in hell. But with all that being said, the parole board actually denied Erik Menendez, and I honestly was quite surprised. Now, even if he was granted parole, Governor Newsom could have overturned it. I don't know if he could overturn the parole board's denial, though, as if I recall correctly, I believe he was supportive of the Menendez brothers getting resentenced and the case being reevaluated. I could remember that incorrectly, but nonetheless, he was denied. And this was real big news. Again, a big case everyone's been following, and it's a parole board. It's not a courtroom, right? Courtrooms, judges can make decisions. Like with the Diddy trial, the media was like barred from the courtroom as far as cameras and such. There could be reporters in there and all that. But when it comes to parole hearings, I don't know what the typical protocol, but in this instance, they allowed one reporter, period, to be in there and to kind of debrief all the other media outlets. And with that being said, let's go into some of what Erik Menendez spoke about. Like we said, he for the first time in years, as when the trial was going on, there was a lot of stuff that, should they testify, shouldn't they testify, what's the truth about this, that, there was a lot of controversial stuff, but he spoke to them in depth about his life and about murdering his parents. And again, he was denied by this panel. And during this hearing, he offered the most detailed account, like I just said, in years. And he said he and his brother Lyle, or apologies, he said, I was not raised with a moral foundation. I was raised to lie, to cheat, to steal in the sense, an abstract way. When I was playing tennis, my father would make sure that I cheated at certain times if he told me to. The idea that there is a right and wrong that I do not cross because it's moral bound was not instilled in me as a teenager. And, regardless what anyone believes about the father, and I do believe he was a weirdo personally, that he was abusing them on some sick demonry type ish. He just, from what I've seen, the evidence in that Menudo documentary, I believe that this sack ish did indeed do what was alleged. But aside from that, he was abusive, just treated the mom and the kids like shit, and just very aggressive. A lot of people have attested to that. Like, he was a psychopath, man. And he said that his father abused him for years, and he fantasized about his father not being alive. So that's why it was so easy for him to take his father's life. Now they're like, well, what about your mom? And they also asked, why not just leave? You know what I mean? You were already 18. He said, in my mind, leaving meant death. There was no consideration. I was totally convinced there was no place I could go. So the dad, the way he brought him up, what do you guys think about that? Do you believe that this is all truthful? Like, his dad brought him up, that he was rich and wealthy. He was on a power trip, abusing them. And, like to him, they couldn't escape the father's reach, is what Erik Menendez says. He also spoke about the fear of his father. It's difficult to convey how terrifying the father was. And then specifically asked about the murders. He explained that he did not see any difference between his parents because he found out that the mother knew about the abuse. Quote, it was the most devastating moment in my entire life. It had changed everything for me. I had been protecting her by not telling her. And then he finds out she knows, according to him, once again, whether you believe it or not, he felt, I'm guessing from what I'm hearing here, that she was just as bad as the father. He's thinking he's saving the mom. She's abused by the father as well, in a physical manner, if I remember correctly. And he just treated her like shit. But like, he wanted to protect her from knowing this evil, sick secret. And then all along she knows. So like, he was like, hey, F you too. And then he said, I wish to God I didn't do that, shoot the mother. Breaking the prison rules. So in prison, he got caught drinking alcohol, I think using some substances, having a cell phone and all that, and affiliating with the gang. I don't know if they were running with the Woods or what. Anyone know? Like I said, I've heard people say they were locked up with the Menendez brothers, but I guess Erik was gang banging in there. But I guess that's what you got to do with the prison politics to get by. But as far as the cell phone, he said, what I got in terms of the phone and my connection with the outside world was far greater than the consequences of getting caught with the phone. And I think for any prisoner, that probably would seem to be the case, unless you're in there doing a major short bid, right? substance abuse. He said if I could numb my sadness with alcohol, I was going to do that. I would have to take other drugs to numb that pain. I was looking to ease that sadness within me. But in 2013, he got clean and sober, allegedly, according to him, and found God. And, you know, when asked about that, he said in 2013, he found faith. He said from 2013 on, I was living for a different purpose. My purpose in life was to be a good person. I asked myself, who do I want to be when I die? I believe I'm going to face a different parole board when I die. So with all that being said, that's as in-depth as they really went into. Pretty detailed breakdown of what he discussed with the parole board, and they said denied. I was a bit shocked, but I guess you never really know. You know, it's parole board is a lot different than a court hearing, you know. But like I said, Gavin Newsom could reverse the decision if they were granted parole. I don't know if he can reverse it the other way or if he will, but if indeed that is the case, they were saying he has like 30 days to get involved. So we'll see if something does jump off in the news regarding that. But yeah, man, Menendez brothers, big news, man. Again, this case is being talked about since it happened in '89. And here we are all the way in 2025, just a year ago or so. There was all that attention with all the new content coming out, and they got their wish and were resentenced. But first time up to the parole board, Erik is denied. I don't know if the brother's seen the board yet, but I'd imagine he would receive the same fate, you know, logically thinking in my head. But what do I know, you know? So let me know what you know in regards to all this and your thoughts, feelings, and everything. And again, we'll have to see if Gavin Newsom gets involved. And I don't know, when do they see the board again? 2 years, 5 years? I'm quite not sure, as it's a 50 to life sentence. So, or is it every year? Anyone with that knowledge of the California Department of Corrections, hit the comments with it all. But I don't know, I didn't see this coming. I figured if they got resentenced, they were as good as free. But freedom, you know, isn't always that easy to obtain. But still, from a life sentence to never coming home to having a 50 to life where you see the board is still a big W, you know what I mean? I believe they are in their 50s now, if I'm not mistaken, but still, that's a lot of life to live in a sense. Not really, so much of their life has been behind bars, but you know, to think you're never gonna get free and to just have that possibility is really something there, man. So go check out my bro's channel, like I was telling you about. He's got an interesting story. He should get resentenced or something like that pretty soon. Again, it's not the exact same law, but it's similar. I don't know, if you go tap into his platform, he can tell you a little bit about it all. And with that being said, I'm gonna close this one out. Thank you again for tuning in. It's Coffee, talking news, music, sports, crime, all kinds of stuff. So make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.